inviting our next guest, Alissa Diesch, a researcher and lecturer at the Leibniz University of Hannover.
Yeah, thank you, Federica. Thank you for the nice invitation and the very interesting presentation so far. We will be traveling and it will be a bit different now. So this is Colombia. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's quite a broad term, circular territories, and Colombia is a big country, so I will only try to put some spotlights and some ideas how circular territories, circular economy, and creative industries are related to that place. The first will be the rural agricultural circularities. And an example of this will be part of where I worked and did my research for my PhD in Bogota. This will be Usme. So I hope you can see the map now and everything works fine. If not, please protest. Usme is, well, this is Bogota. Here on the right, you can see the big map. Bogota is the capital of Colombia. Right now, around roughly 10 million people live there, and Usme administratively belongs to this capital district, but as you can see here on the other map, it's still a small independent village, and it is a place that has been inhabited for even before the European arrival. During the conquest and the colonialization, it was turned into a colonial village, as you can see here, and since then it has always been closely related to Bogota, particularly in terms of food supply. This is still the current situation. It's here small-scale peasant farming is still going on, and of course the big market is Bogota still. The other part here in the northern part you can see is the city growing closer to this village. This is the urbanized area. It's basically informal urbanization that has been growing there since the 1980s. The part that is marked here with the orange line is Bogota's biggest urbanization project. Nuevo Usme, it's planned to be the home for 200,000 inhabitants, so quite a big chunk. That was planned in the early 2000s, and as you can see, there has not been built up so much till now, and part of the problem, or that one of the reasons, is that when they started excavating they found out one of the biggest indigenous necropolis in Latin America here in this area, and that has stopped the project so far, and articulated some protests. I will come to this later. Coming back to the relation of Usme to Bogota, there has been food supply, but also in the 30s, for instance, there was made the freshwater reservoir a bit south of this village. They made a train track to build it up, and after finishing the freshwater reservoir, they dismantled the train tracks again, so the village could not benefit with the communication to the big city. And also during this construction process for the city, in many mines, building material was extracted here, like clay, gravel, or sand. Also, the Bogota's landfill is located in this area. So one can say there is this relation of an extractive exploitation without the benefits for the village itself. During my fieldwork, I wanted to find out more about these dynamics that can be found there in the rural part, but also in the urban part. So you can see me here in what is important in Usme, food. That was a lunch with my fieldworking partners. You can see here some of these community initiatives that that rose up after the urban expansion project was planned, where they tried to represent their agricultural and gastronomic heritage, but also they understand themselves as very sustainable. They're small-scale peasants. None of them has more than 2 hectares in their farm. And all they understand their community and also, of course, the archaeological findings as their heritage, and represent themselves here as very valuable, understand the land as more than only a commodity to be sold for the urbanization project. of course. However, these communities that are represented in everyday life, but also in harvesting and sowing, of course, are considered from the city rather as backwarded, underdeveloped, or unmodern. We can see that Usme is still very green, but we can see that there's also, we can also see here the mixed cultivation. So they dairy products and also in these very small farms, they have strong mixed cultivation that is pre-industrial and still very sustainable. And we can also see how the city is getting closer and how this conflict of the two worlds is starting to become a reality also. Since the beginning of the 20th century, of course, the food retail has changed a lot. Industrialization and urbanization have changed the market. And if the trading chains before had been like one intermediary, it has changed that now the supply chain is for like 9 intermediaries that want to profit from all these business, and the big supermarkets and central markets have conquered the scene, and which is particular for the consumer. It has the prices were rising, and for the producers the benefits were lowering. There were some attempts by the people in the south of Bogota, where many of the rather poor people live, to challenge these international systems by, for instance, the Sura Bastos, which was a retailing center, which was planned to be a retailing center that never came true for the products of the local farmers and the people living in the urban areas. And another project was this Mercandrea supermarket chain that was also buying from the local peasants and also from other areas in Colombia to sell it. Well, it's not a real supermarket. It's more like selling really agricultural products, not so much processed, but rather raw. However, it was closed down during the election campaign 4 years ago because they were accused of having contact to the FARC guerrilla. We can see that in the urban part, but also in the rural part, informal selling of these agricultural products is normal, particularly due to also hygienic regulations that make it almost impossible for the farmers to sell their products in the legal market. These are some impressions also of the former intermediary places, like in Centro de Acopio and here a dairy farm that are not in use anymore. And another interesting relation between the rural and the urban has evolved. It's like the meat market on the weekends that's connected to popular party, some due to illegal butchering also. Another nice relation between the rural and the urban is the barter trade, the so-called trueque markets, where it's not only an exchange of agrarian and urban goods, but also a nice meeting and exchange of experiences of people. When the indigenous necropolis was discovered, many additional actors also entered the stage in the protest against this urbanization project, particularly academics and artists. So here is a very nice art project by Maria Buenaventura about the territory and the commodification, that it's the land is more than only a commodity, and that it's related to traditions and relations, and was actually a very nice project to connect the rural and the urban, and an understanding of all these networks and exchanges and circularities as a base for further urbanism, which unfortunately is not part of the official agenda. Then I want to jump now into a bit the more urban part, to the area of, for those who know Bogota, Chapinero, where I present some creative food, the creative food of diverse territories. As an example of a bigger scale, there is, I want to present here the Restaurante Minimal, which is a restaurant that was founded in the early 2000s to represent the biodiversity and cultural diversity and the creativity of Colombia. Colombia has a very diverse geography, 2 coasts, the Caribbean and Pacific coast, many mountain ranges, high peaks, up to 5,000 meters, and many valleys, high plains, low plains, and there are very diverse cultures. They have been very diverse cultures even before the arrival of the European and the Africans, but since then you can imagine they're like very diverse forms of food production and gastronomic traditions. And this restaurant, founded by artists and agricultural engineers, had the idea to bring this together in a very creative way. And yes, actually, I can only recommend if you go to Bogota to test it. It's very delicious and a very nice example of how the resource of Colombia could be this diversity and creativity. These are more screenshots of the website. I can also leave you the links later in the chat if you want to. So it's really evaluating the work of the communities and the diversity of these different landscapes. Staying in the same area in Bogota, I would consider this also a creative territory of sonic and artistic industries. Here I have an example of the music industry. Music in Colombia is very important, and here it's the capital where a lot of musical influences meet. Traditional music meeting also urban music like rock and punk or salsa, cumbia. All the different rhythms are brought together here. And you can see that you actually need a very dense network of different institutions to keep alive a music industry and to work with it. And so it's different places of concert venues, but also shops where you can buy and rent musical stuff. You need a radio stations and places of production and how do you say, grabar, producing music and then selling it also. So here different ideas of the different concert places, how they look like. So that is important. It's like also I have to mention almost none of these institutions has official funding support, but there are also places like Casa Quilele where different places meet or different disciplines meet at one place. So this is a guest house, this is a concert venue, there is like these agro market where, for eco products. They have a bar and a little shop. And this is a very essential place to bring together all these creative scenes. And for the creative industries, of course, we all know we need these places. This is a recording and production studio, Mambo Negro Records. They're actually very small, but on the other hand, they are very big, have international collaborations, make these concerts, they make possible collaborations, for instance, between Colombia and Japan, or here with some of the members of Sons of Kemet from London producing there also an interesting product. But when you look at the places, it's all very handmade and rooted also, but they produce the vinyls there. Another example would be Casa Ratrap, which is a screen printing workshop where they do these. They're very dedicated to the local punk scene and make these album covers and t-shirts there, but they're also related to the art market. So here on an art fair, they also present their work. And of course, in the workshop, this is a meeting and exchange place, and there are some parties and workshops for other people too. A bit north of this sector, we can find the San Felipe Art District, where a lot of galleries work together, and also in the Noche San Felipe, every second month or every month, I don't remember well, you can like have a look at all these different galleries, and there are like bars and places to exchange and get to know the scene. So this would be one example. The last example I want to show today is promoting here Colombia as a creative destination, would be Ames, which is a design brand, a pretty new design brand, and they really understand also this variety of the different places in Colombia as a resource of inspiration, but also as a literal resource of creating their products. And so you can see here from the different materials and the different crafts and traditions from all these places, how they create these products. Ames actually is pretty big already, and they have very international collaborations with designers from Germany, for instance. It would be Sebastian Herkner, and yeah, producing this brand. I think that are really nice examples, and I think what unites all these projects is that they understand these geographic, cultural, and biological diversity as a resource for making these projects happen. And but it's not understanding resource here is something that needs to be kept alive, and that's something that can be exploited, like crude oil. And that's probably my proposal to see that way, and that's a bit different to what the national orange economy proposal is saying, when they literally say to squeeze the orange out. And I think that that is the wrong understanding of these resources. They must be kept alive. Thank you.
Many thanks, Alissa, for giving us this background about Colombia. And so also in your case, I think we'll keep the questions for the end for the discussion.